next. So let's add a reverb to our vocal, and let's set up another send for this. I'm just going to close these EQs down, and let's insert a send right after the EQ this time. Send our sidechain to insert 3. We're going to rename this insert 3 to vocal reverb. And now in this send, we're able to send this to vocal reverb.
Gently whispering.
So we're sending a copy of the signal here. And on this vocal reverb insert, we're going to place a reverb plugin. And now on this reverb plugin, we're going to turn the dry signal all the way down because we have our copy of the original dry signal. We're only interested in the wet or the reverb sound.
Gently whispering.
And now because we set it up using a fruity send, even if I mute the original vocal,
Gently whispering. Release the sound.
we can listen to just the reverb.
Gently whispering.
And so if we set this up to be a longer reverb,
Gently whispering. Digging down underneath and gently whispering.
turn this down a little bit.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering.
And a lot of times when you add a reverb to your vocal, what happens is reverb kind of just washes over the vocal and it creates this nice ambience and space. But a lot of times it also destroys any legibility, and it actually makes the vocal less clear. So it adds a lot of muddy frequencies, a lot of sort of confusing frequencies, and makes our vocal much harder to hear. So we can control the reverb by using an EQ, and we can EQ some of the low end out to clean up the reverb itself and make our vocals sound a little bit cleaner. So if I add an EQ to this,
Digging down underneath and gently whispering, release the sound.
so just by cutting some low end frequencies, we're already cleaning up our reverb quite a bit. Let's just listen to before and after.
Digging down, digging down underneath.
So it's already not quite as boomy, not quite as loud of a reverb. It's a little bit colder sounding. And that's just one way to clean it up. And so we also have this setting. I'm just going to reset this to default. And we also have a similar setting right on the reverb itself. I can turn this low cut up.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering.
That way we're cutting some low end right on the reverb plugin itself. But a lot of times what happens is it makes the reverb sound quite cold, and if the intention is to add this room and ambience, we actually want the low end in the reverb.
Digging down.
And so if we want to keep this reverb low end in the reverb, but still have the vocal sound quite clear, there is a trick that we can use to turn down the reverb dynamically whenever the dry vocal happens in our mix. And so we set this up using a peak controller and a fruity balance. So I already described how to use a peak controller, and we're going to go over it again. So that way you get a chance to practice it one more time. And so let's set up our peak controller right in this original vocal channel. And I'm going to just insert it after all of these plugins here.
Digging down.
And this time I'm not going to mute it. I'm just going to let the signal pass through it, but we're still reading our volume fluctuations from the vocal.
Digging down underneath underneath.
So nothing is happening yet, nothing's being turned down, is because we're gonna insert a fruity balance. And this is just our volume control, and I showed you how to, and I talked about this earlier, but we're gonna use this in a dynamic way so that this volume control on the reverb is gonna turn down dynamically whenever the vocal is happening. So right now,
Digging down underneath.
right now it's just a volume control on our reverb channel, on our reverb insert. Let's rename this peak controller to our reverb control. And in the Fruity Balance plugin, now I want to link this volume control to our peak controller for the reverb. And then we find this vocal rev control here that I set up. And then we do it exactly the same way. We do it in the inverted fashion.
Digging down underneath.
And you can see that this is dynamically being turned down already, but like in the EQ setting, we need to set this bass because the default for the Fruity Balance is 0 dB, which means that it's not turning up or down our signal. So we want to set this to back to 0 dB as opposed to being at 100%. So now we control this bass setting and set this back to 0 dB or about 20%. Now this volume control is going to start turning down from 0 instead.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering.
And now you can hear how the reverb is dynamically ducking out of the way when the original dry vocal is in our signal. So we can adjust the decay a little bit to smooth this control down a bit, and we adjust the decay to the left to make it smoother.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering. Release the sound, it's hovering.
So now we have this controlling the wet signal over our reverb and dynamically ducking out of the way. And we can even control the intensity of this effect if we click on this gear icon here. Now we have the mix level. It's the same as the mix level here. It's just a little bit easier to get to. And so now we can get this mix level. We can control how much of this effect we want to apply to our wet signal.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering
to make it sound a little bit more transparent. So if I turn this off and we listen to the way we had before without the dynamic control of the reverb.
Digging down underneath and gently whispering.
The vocal is kind of getting washed out by the reverb, and then if I turn this back on,
digging down underneath and gently whispering.
So this cleaned up our vocal quite a bit, and we have much more legible, much more clear vocal signal. And then we still have this reverb and we still have this ambience around it, but it's not getting as much in the way whenever our vocal is actually present. You can use this on anything from synthesizer to guitar. It's just a neat trick to make your vocals, to make your sound a little bit more legible in the mix, a little cleaner, while still adding all this ambience to your sound.